Welcome to Oops, I'm Evolving. I'm Morgan, and this is the podcast where we take those big, mind-blowing spiritual concepts and break them down into the real life shit you can actually use. Because let's be honest, real growth doesn't happen in the highlight reel. It happens in the shadows, in the messy, uncomfortable WTF moments. So let's talk about it, air it all out, and level up. Hey, welcome back to another episode of Oops, I'm Evolving. Today's episode I'm really excited about. We're going to be talking about a major reason why you're blocking your manifestations, and you may not even realize it. Now, in full transparency, this won't be everybody's main reason, right? There are so many subconscious beliefs that come in and start creeping in and kind of like putting a screeching halt to our manifestations. But this is one of my big ones that I have had to work through, and I'm seeing this one in a lot of my clients as well. So I just thought I'd come in and share it with all of you, and we can work through what you got going on. What we're going to be talking about today is the shame that you feel when you start wanting more out of life. More joy, more peace, more freedom, more money, more alignment, more ways to be you. So we feel that underlying desire. We feel that pressure for more. But what do we do instead of feeling inspired by that desire? We feel guilty, we feel ungrateful, we feel selfish, we feel entitled. And I know it's so fucking annoying because when you boil it down and you look at it with your conscious mind, you're like, listen, I shouldn't feel guilty for the things that I want, right? But we do. And the best thing we can do is look at it. We can start kind of consciously paying attention to the stories that we're telling ourselves and the way that our brain is running on autopilot. Because when you have all of these subconscious beliefs, it is a big red fucking stop sign for your manifestations, because your subconscious is what's ruling your underlying feelings. And when you're burying your desire underneath shame and guilt and embarrassment and whatever else you're feeling, it's a big red giant stop sign to your manifestations. Because what do you need for your manifestations? You need a desire. So today I'm going to really be spending some time with you to help unlearn the shame around wanting more. We're going to walk through exactly how this can show up in your real life, why it's happening, and how you can break the pattern so that you can finally actually receive the life that you say you want, right? It is all about getting into it in alignment with our desires. So there is a silent shame around wanting more, and the truth that nobody says out loud is a lot of us are out here pretending that we're content, because it feels safer than admitting that you're not content. You've probably had this moment before. I know I have. When you look around at your life, maybe the job, the family, the house, the partner, and it all looks good on paper. If you've been around for any amount of time, you know that's my story. Everything looked good on paper, but I had this quiet discontentment, this quiet burning desire that there had to be more out there in life for me. But I felt really guilty, right? I should be happy, but something just felt off. I felt unsettled. It was like my soul was knocking on the inside of my chest, and like I just knew there had to be more. But instead of listening to that desire and just following that desire and literally just following my strategy and my authority in human design, you know what I did instead? Probably what a lot of you guys are doing is I shut it down immediately with guilt. I told myself, like, I should be grateful. Other people have it so much worse than me. Who am I to want more when I already have all of this? Or maybe I'm just being dramatic. Am I just being dramatic? Why can't I be happy? Instead of just allowing my desire to be a desire and to fuel me, I shamed myself for not just being grateful. So if that sounds familiar to you, that is internalized programming. And internalized programming is that subconscious belief, and it's designed to keep us safe. It's survival mode. It's not thrival mode. It's not manifestation mode. It is survival. Because if you believe that wanting more makes you selfish or ungrateful, then you'll never actually claim the bigger life that you are wanting to call in. So, the truth about all of this guilt, about this shame, it was all planted. It's not inherently yours. You were somewhere along the way taught. Maybe you were told that when you were younger, you should just be grateful. You get what you get and you don't throw a fit, right? Maybe you were labeled too much or you were labeled spoiled. Maybe you were praised for settling or for like making the best of it. Good. Wow. Good job. I'm so glad you made the best of it. And maybe every single time you expressed wanting more, you were shut down. And hey, listen, this is not a bash on parents. I'm a parent. It's really fucking hard. It's so frustrating when you do and do and do for your kids and they want more and more and more. And for me, I think it's a trigger that I can't give them more, but it is still this like passed on inherent belief that if they want more, that must mean that they're not grateful for what they just had. And that sounds crazy, right? Like when we say it, we're like, wait, what? Wanting more and being grateful, they're not two separate things. They can exist in the same sentence. We're taught that desire is dangerous, that wanting more makes you selfish, that being satisfied with enough makes you good, moral, grounded, right? That's what makes us good people, is when we're just content, when we're just satisfied, when we're not looking for more. Somewhere along the way, we've been taught that desire is bad, wanting more is bad, and we just need to settle. So, what happens is when we internalize the idea that settling is noble, it is the good thing to do, and desire is bad, wanting more is betrayal, wanting more means you hurt other people, wanting more means that you take away from others. Yeah, of course, we're not going to want more. Of course, we're going to have these subconscious programming around wanting more as an adult, wanting to push ourselves, wanting to desire. And I thought this was so interesting because when I was sitting down and I was thinking about this episode and I was journaling and getting all my thoughts out on paper, I thought, wow, we would never look at a company like Nike, for example, and think that they're ungrateful because they wanted to continue making more. Making more money, for one, yes, but when they make more money, they can hire more people. When they make more money, they can donate more money. And I don't know, I mean, sorry if Nike is like not a moral company, I have no clue. But what I'm saying is that we are just kind of taught that the desire to be more is inherently bad. And when you look at, say, like a millionaire and they have a goal to make 2 million next year, it's their desire. And why is that desire necessarily bad? We've really planted this red sticker on desire to make it a bad thing. So, what having this internalized structure in your life can look like, I want to call this I want to call it out plain and clear so that you can catch it in your So, if you feel like you've had to say no to a business idea because you don't want to seem too greedy, or you've had to say no to anything that you want because you don't want to seem too greedy. Maybe you're staying in a relationship because it's not that bad. Maybe you feel a lot of shame around wanting a new house, even though there's nothing wrong with your house. It can come off in like shame in what you own. Maybe you have nice things and somebody compliments you on it, and you always have to be like the first person to be like, I got it on sale, or like, oh, I didn't spend that much money on it. I know I was really good for that. Maybe you're somebody that you tell yourself it's not the right time every single time your soul lights you up. All of these are ways in which you are suppressing that desire. You're burying it under all of this shame, all of this guilt, all of this selfish, whatever label that we've put it on. And you're like, nope, that desire is bad and we need to push it down. what I want to say, and this is what the kicker is that you guilt yourself into gratitude. I know I did this. I would always tell myself I should just be grateful. Why aren't I that grateful? And then I would do like this huge gratitude practice to be grateful for my life. And it didn't stop the desire. It didn't stop that quiet whisper of discontentment. It didn't tell me that there wasn't more out there for me. So you can use gratitude as a weapon to keep yourself small. And what I mean by gratitude is quote unquote gratitude, right? It's just this place that you say you need to be grateful so that you can keep yourself small, so that you can push those desires down. So you convince yourself to be thankful for the breadcrumbs. You convince yourself to be thankful for settling for less. You convince yourself all of this stuff when really you want the whole meal. You want the whole sandwich. You don't want just breadcrumbs. And it's not that you're not grateful for those breadcrumbs. You might be grateful that those breadcrumbs are keeping you alive right now. They're keeping your family warm. Maybe you drive a shitty car and your car is getting you from place A to B. All of those things are wonderful. Yes, we should be grateful for them. However, if you have this desire for more, if you have this desire and it is coming from a right place and not from conditioning, and it's not coming because you feel like you need to prove yourself or anything like that, but it's just you know that you're made for more in this life than what you're currently experiencing, then I just want to say that it is soul desire. It is something that is already meant for you in this lifetime. You know, when we talk about manifestation and when we get really kind of like into the like a little bit more woo side of things, when you want something, there's already a version of you that has it in a different reality because, you know, time is, you know, I'm going to be honest, I don't understand the concept of time not being a real thing. So I can't really get into that or even like all of the quantum fields. I gotta say I don't fully understand it, so it's just kind of a theory. So you know what, if you maybe go do your own research on that. But what I want to say is that when you're in this practice of like actively manifesting and you have this desire, it's because there's already a version of you out there that has that thing. And so that desire is not random. That desire is something that truly comes from your soul. You can be deeply, deeply, deeply grateful for something and still desire more, because like if you think about it this way, you can love your life and still want it to stretch, right? Like if you have a company that you're absolutely in love with, you can still want to stretch. Maybe you have this relationship that you're totally absolutely in love with, but you don't want it to just stay stagnant, right? You're going to want it to continue growing. You're going to want it to continue developing. You're going to want it to continue getting deeper and deeper with age. You want to continue that. So it seems crazy then that we would say that wanting to grow, wanting to stretch, wanting more is the equivalent to being ungrateful. But that's what we do. And in fact, the magic sauce to manifestation, the magic sauce to life is learning that you can appreciate what's here. You can be grateful for what's here, like truly bone deep grateful, and simultaneously calling in what's next, simultaneously desiring more, pushing for more, wanting more. That is the sweet spot. Desire doesn't mean that you're dissatisfied. It truly just means that you're alive. It just means you're a fucking human being because we desire things, right? So it doesn't mean that just because you want something, that you're dissatisfied with something. Nope. Actually, they can coexist. You can be satisfied and still want more. That is the magic sauce. But if you've never ever felt safe to want, if every desire has been met with shame or shut down, then of course it feels wrong to want more. Then of course your body braces. That is trauma. Like that is what happens when we have to figure out like, oh shit, we've been taught this is trauma and now I have to work through it. The energetics of wanting more is that truly desire is sacred. It is the way that your soul speaks to you. It is this inherent knowing that your body and your soul has for you and for your life path. And even though it may not consciously make sense to you, desire is the way you are meant to live. And your human design can tell you like how that desire is going to express, how that desire is going to show up for you. And then it's up to you to use your authority, which is your end all be all decision maker, to decide if that is something that you're meant to go after right now or not. Your human design will be the vehicle in which gets you to your desire. That's going to show you how you're meant to be going about it, what decisions you're meant to make, that kind of thing. It's really going to be the vehicle. But it's really hard for us to look at our desire. It's very hard for us to look at our wants and our needs when we are buried in that shame and that guilt. And we can't really listen to our soul when we are so ingrained with conditioning, because there's nothing that stops you in your tracks quicker than these subconscious beliefs that are running an autopilot in your brain. So the goal is to just shine a light on those things. If you don't feel safe to want things, to desire things, you're going to continue to subconsciously sabotage receiving. And being open to receive is something that is thrown out in the spiritual community all of the time. You know, you have to be open to receive. I don't know if you've heard a tarot reading on TikTok, you have heard like that you're going to be receiving something all the time, right? But a lot of us are not actually open to receiving because we're burying everything. We are completely shut off, because being open to receiving energetically requires an open heart. It requires an open mind. It requires us to really shed a lot of layers of that conditioning that have been placed upon us. And being open to receiving can feel really scary when we're talking about energetically, because when you're receiving more, it means facing your guilt. Because if you have this like guilt around money, if you have all these money stories, but yet here you are wanting to manifest money, you're not going to be open to receiving that, because the minute you receive that, it's like your container, you're calling in a giant mixing bowl money, right? And really your container is a teaspoon. You can only hold a teaspoon before you get overwhelmed and it's too much for you, because you have all of this wounding or all these guilt stories around money. Now, this is just one example. It can be around anything. It could be around love. It could be around whatever. But your job as we move through life is to start getting bigger containers so that you can hold more space for things, whether this be emotions, safety, love, authenticity, whatever. Because when we have put ourselves in these boxes due to our conditioning, the shame, the guilt, all of that is like filling up most of our container, and we can't hold anything else because we're too busy holding shame and guilt. So it's really important that we just shine a light on these underlying stories that we're telling ourselves, and then we can go in and we can do more. And if you want help doing this, this is what we do in the group chat. We work through things like this using your human design as your vehicle to get you there. So if you're always settling for the bare minimum, and if that's the energy that you're putting out there, you're going to push away opportunities, you're going to push away abundance, you're going to push away love, everything that you're calling in, because you're just settling for the bare minimum. Your container is too small to be able to hold what you're calling in. So if your guilt is still running the show, you're never, ever, ever going to feel safe enough to receive what you want. So let's shift it. Let's reclaim it. I know you're asking like, okay, Morgan, what the fuck do I do with this now? So I just want to say this to you directly. You're allowed to want more peace, more time, more joy, more depth, more money, more love, more ease, even if your life looks fine, even if other people don't understand it, even if it makes people uncomfortable. One thing that will make people giantly uncomfortable is when you're already making a lot of money and you want to make more money, right? but they don't know. Maybe you want to make more money so you can donate more. Maybe that you want to make more money so you can hire more people, right? Money in the hands of good people does incredible fucking things. But it just makes people uncomfortable because they think, man, you sure are getting greedy. And they have this mindset that if you make more, you're taking away from somebody else. And that just ain't the fucking case. So it can make people really uncomfortable. Well, you know what? That's not your fucking job. That's not your deal to deal with it. You don't need to justify your desires. You don't need to justify your wants. You don't need to prove that you've suffered enough to deserve more. You don't need to prove that you've worked really fucking hard to get where you are. And you don't need to shrink down so that you can be really digestible. I know that, I remember getting compliments on like a vehicle that I was driving that was really nice at the time, and me being like, oh, like so wildly uncomfortable. Like, oh, we got a really good deal on it. Trust me, it doesn't mean I'm rich. Like, just weird shit. And it's like, I had a teaspoon, right? I had a teaspoon and I was wanting a huge mixing bowl. I couldn't hold that much. So just know that your desires are not a problem. They are the solution. They should be what you are following. Some of the things that you can do here is, I know, journaling, but you know what? Here's the deal. You actually got to do the fucking work. You can't just listen to the podcast and then think that you did enough. Sorry, that's not it. Maybe this like exposed something to you. I hope it did. And if it did, please, please, please share this with someone, because if you have someone that you deeply love and you know that they want more in their life, but they're just scared to admit it, maybe this episode would really, really help them. So please share. So something that you can really dig into is, what do you secretly want more of that you don't feel safe admitting? Like, what's like embarrassing? What is that thing that you want more of that you would never, ever, ever tell anybody else, right? Did you learn that it was bad or selfish to want more? At first, this question was, where did I first learn this? And for me, that wasn't really important. It was like, I don't really care where I learned it. I just want to know, did I learn this? Is this actually a belief I carry, or is this somebody else's? And if it's somebody else's, can I put it down? Who benefits when you stay small, quiet, or satisfied with less? Ooh. And then my favorite one, and especially when you're working with manifestation, this one is huge, because with manifestation, you have to step into the version of you that already has what you want. You have to energetically pretend to be that way. So for instance, if you're calling in abundance, then you need to energetically be somebody who has a lot of money. And that doesn't mean that but it's just like, what feeling would money bring you? What feeling would a lot of money bring you? What feeling would finding your soulmate bring you if you're manifesting a soulmate? And then you have to act like that version of you. So this is my favorite one for this, is, what version of me would I have to step into to receive my desire? Because there is going to be somebody there. You're going to have to clear some underlying beliefs. You're going to have to step into maybe some boldness, some proudness, whatever. And you're going to have to be a version of you that you've never, ever been before. And then finally, I'll leave this with you. Gratitude does not mean you're settling. And healing doesn't mean pretending you're content when your soul is screaming for more. You don't need to earn your expansion. You literally just have to say yes to following your desires. Let your too much be the map. Let your desire be the compass. Let your human design be the vehicle that gets you there. Your guilt is truly just a sign that you are finally stepping beyond the limits that you have been handed, the handcuffs that have been placed on you, the box that you've built around yourself. You're not greedy. You're just remembering that, there is more to life than what you're experiencing. All right, that's it for today's episode of Oops, I'm Evolving. Thanks for hanging out and diving into the messy, real shit with me. If you're loving the vibe, make sure to follow the podcast, leave a review, and find me on socials to keep the conversation going. Remember, growth isn't always pretty, but damn, it's worth it. Catch you next time.